Hello, and welcome to today's webinar, where we will be walking you through our brand new Introduction to Security zyBook. Just a little bit of housekeeping before we get started today. Please make sure that you stay muted throughout the call. If you have a question, you can feel free to drop it into the chat, or you can raise your hand and we'll pause throughout the presentation to answer your questions. At the end of today's session, you'll receive a link to complete a survey. The survey should take about 5 minutes of your time. As a professor-founded company, we really value your feedback and look forward to your response. And as a thank you for your survey feedback, we'll send you a gift card for lunch. Today's session is being recorded, and we will send out the recording later on this week. So my name is Michelle Sesniak, and I'm the Information Technology Marketing Manager here at zyBooks. I'm joined today by my colleagues, Dr. Babak Sharaka, who is our Information Technology Content Lead, and Patrick Thornham, who is our zyBooks Platform Marketing Manager. Also on the line, we have Brian Gambrell, our Information Technology Executive Editor, and he'll be helping us monitor the chat and answer your questions today. For those of you unfamiliar with zyBooks, as I mentioned earlier, we're a professor-founded company. Professor Frank Vahid, whom you see here on the slide, was having a hard time getting his students to read and stay engaged in his class. And therefore, his students were having a really hard time succeeding in his class. So he came up with the notion of an interactive online platform that allows students to learn by doing. He partnered with Smita Bakshi, and they created zyBooks. After launching the new learning platform in his classes, Frank saw student performance increase by 16% and letter grades improved by 2, sometimes even 3 levels. Frank's least prepared students improved by 64% when using zyBooks as their learning platform, which is pretty incredible. Since 2012, over 900 universities and colleges across the country have adopted zyBooks to transform their STEM education. The zyBooks vision is less text, more action. zyBooks are web-native interactive textbooks that help students visualize concepts to learn quicker and more effectively than with a traditional textbook. Concepts are brought to life through extensive animations that are embedded into the interactive content, and learning questions and labs help to reinforce these key concepts. Our continuous publication model allows us to make updates to our content and labs easily and often to stay up to date with the latest content and technology. Our Introduction to Security zyBook is 100% mapped to the latest Security Plus exam and includes sample test questions to help you prepare your students for certification. The zyBooks platform allows you to completely customize your course by reorganizing existing content and even adding in your own content. And our reporting will give you insight into your students' progress, reading, and participation. Our IT zyLabs are developed in-house by zyBooks authors and are built alongside our content. They run on live virtual machines, which are the gold standard in IT education. Lab assignments expose students to the complex challenges of real systems, allowing them to apply theoretical concepts to real hardware, operating systems, applications, and tools. These labs are auto-graded and provide instant feedback to students as they complete them. So now at this time, I'd like to turn it over to Patrick, who's going to take you into the zyBooks platform and show you some of our features. I'm going to stop sharing and turn it over to you, Patrick.
Thanks, Michelle. Can everybody see my screen here?
Yep.
Okay. So I'm going to cover just a much higher level view of our platform in general. Pretty much everything I show you is true of all of the zyBooks material, but it's also one of the key elements that makes a difference in many cases. So this is what it looks like from an instructor side if you adopt, or pretty much if you're even looking at evaluation copies that we have that look very similar. This one is adopted, so it's a little bit different, but I'll start by, I'm going to go through all these tabs and go through some basic things here. This is a basic thing on the Welcome tab that if you were to adopt this and you needed your students to get in, this instructions piece is great. It just basically gives you information that you can copy to your clipboard. You can send this, paste it in your LMS, you can paste it in an email, you can do both, and it tells the students exactly what they need to do. They basically just go to our website, they put in this code that attaches them to the book, and then from there, all the subscription information is available to them. So that's for them. And then this will link you out to, and I'll point out up here, is the help and FAQ is also here. Our help section is really good. It will walk you through any questions. The most common questions are there, and they're pretty good about walking you through, which also brings me to our support group is outstanding. They're very responsive and very knowledgeable, and they will fix things very quickly for you if you have any issues with students in the wrong section or something's not quite working. I don't know if you've had experience with things taking a long time with other platforms, but we're very responsive even in our busiest time. So I'll let you know about that as well. I'll also point you to this about this material. Michelle mentioned that continuous publishing model. You can see here everything that's changed just in 2 iterations, and this will continue to change, which in this field is going to be probably critical. And so that's sort of the basics of this. So here's all the chapters. My next thing I'm going to do is show you how you can configure this material to fit your course in the way you need. So I'm going to click on this Configure zyBook, which is available at the top. And I can rename and move any of these chapters. So if I do week 1, and I want to move this up to the first part, that is moved, and all of this happens in real time. So if you decide in the middle of the term that you're never going to get to this and you don't want to have it in this order, you can do that, and it will be live to students as soon as you save it. So it's not something that you have to set up all ahead of time and then you're sort of stuck. It's very, very common. In fact, a lot of the people that are sort of veterans of this have realized that they can sort of stay 2 and 3 weeks ahead because they need to like feel the pace of the course. And then they'll realize they need to move this, or perhaps they need to split something up. I'm going to cancel this one. I will also show you that if you configure inside any of the chapters, you can configure sections. And you also have the ability, as I was mentioning earlier, if it turns out you're just not going to cover some material, you can put a check mark there and you can move them to unused content so students don't see them. And the basic idea of all this is that this now matches exactly your syllabus or the way that you order your course. And again, it can be changed, and it will also carry over. If you were to have adopted this and you want to use it again next term, you can carry it over. In fact, we have some people that wait till the last minute because they're always fine-tuning it, and then they'll have us copy last term's course to make it fit. So that's sort of how that works. And the next part I'm going to show, and then I'll pause for some questions, is you also have the ability to add your own material. So if I go to Configure zyBook, if I add a new chapter, I can do that here and then move it to where I want. A couple of examples I've seen, people will do a tour of a lab sometimes, or they will have a special project that is part of the grade, and they'll just have pieces of that project there and refer maybe to other parts of the book. We've seen syllabus quizzes or academic integrity quizzes just built right in, and I'll show how to add content to that here in just a second. If you also, in any chapter that does exist or any of your own chapters, you can create your own section, right? So I'll just do custom section. And you have all these options. So if you were doing a syllabus quiz, you could paste your syllabus here. And then if you wanted to just make a quick, this is a multiple choice question, you can ask the question, you can give the correct answer. You can add your own feedback, and you'll see the pedagogy that we will always have feedback here. And you can have as many of these as you want. We have short answer questions available. So here's the question prompt and the acceptable answer. You'll add the answer, and you can add another acceptable answer if you had more than one. So those are available. You can add your own images or videos. During COVID, we saw a lot of people just paste their lecture videos in here in places where the reference made sense. Images, all of that kind of thing is available to you. So it's very easy to make this fit what you need. We tried to make it as simple as possible and as flexible as possible. And it's especially in a course like this where it's taught differently all over the place. It's a nice thing to have. Any questions on customization? Can you combine existing chapters? So yes, what you can Well, what you could do is move things to another chapter. So basically, I'll sort of just describe it. If you were to add a chapter at the end, right, and then you make this your custom chapter, then you can take contents, you can check mark all those contents and move those to another chapter and put them there. Another common thing that may happen that's exactly the same idea is maybe one chapter covers way too much of a topic and you're going to want to split it into 2 weeks. I've actually seen people do it. They realize in the middle of the term that there's no way they're going to cover all this week, so they'll split it into 2. You can make it security assessment part 1, security assessment part 2. So that's also available. I'm trying to look at the chat. Anything else that's in there? I'm going to cancel out of this. I will also point out to you that any of these chapters have this print chapter piece. This allows students perpetual access. We know in courses like this, students like to have like sort of reference material. Obviously, animations and things won't come across, but these are perpetual, so they'd have the PDF version of these chapters. That would include your custom chapters if you made them. So that would also be available, and it's something that people asked for that we added. Let's see, we set up the content the way we want. Can an author or colleague copy paste it to their account? So you can actually make master copies of these. The little code that's up at the top, we often see people will just say, can you make a copy of Patrick's class, this code, and send it to our support team and add it to my library? And you can even have that just as an evaluation copy. But some people will set it up as a master copy. This is all, if you guys want to see more, we do in-depth demos of this material if you wanted to do a one-on-one of anything, because we can cover that. I'll also mention that all of this can be linked with your LMS, because I'll be covering that. In fact, I'll just do that next. I'm going to go through these tabs. So here you can add teaching assistants. You can have more than one section. And if you want to force students to put in their school emails, obviously that can be helpful if students sometimes forget they use their Gmail for one sign up and then they use their Yahoo for another one. They're like, it can get messy. I'm sure some of you here have run into that. And you can also ask them to put their student ID in just to make sure that that roster is sortable in a way that's useful to you. We have this reporting tab, which will, right now, I'm the only one in this class, but it shows my participation. So as you treat these, if you treated this as pre-class reading, you would kind of know how far along everybody was and what they might be struggling with. So this can be useful because it allows for you to really quickly see if students are in the material and interacting with it. There's also an analytics button here. Mine's not going to be very robust because all I did was a little bit, but if you click on any of these, it will break it down into further information, even by question. So when you get into your lab stuff that we'll show you later, that could be really helpful. And this is completion percentages. And this timeline can be really useful too, because if a student comes in and says they've been struggling and you realize either they're spending a lot of time on things and you need to help them get over the hump, or they're claiming they're spending a lot of time and you go in here and you're like, well, that's not what we're seeing. You can sort of have that conversation. All right, any questions about that? Next, I'm going to go into assignments. So I have 2 assignments here, and I'm going to just show you. This is the, if you wanted to link with your LMS, it would do it through this. I'm just going to click add, and I'm going to split one up into week. I'm going to make this week 3. I'll make this week 4. I think I had the other one week 3 reading. And what I'm going to do is choose almost everything. I'm going to uncheck. Let's see. I can click all of these, and then I can add them for my next week and have it due on Valentine's Day, and it'll be due at midnight. And if I save this, it will show up to the students as an assignment. So here's their assignment so far. And I'll add another one that'll just be labs. So I'll do week 4 labs. And if I go into, I think it's this one. Let's see. Yeah, I'm going to check these 2 labs, and I'll add those in as my labs for that class. It's for the entire class. If you wanted to break this into your sections or different separate students might need extra time or something, you can do that there. And if I save that, now I have, this shows when things are due. Obviously, I've mixed up the due date here, so I can edit this. It says I'm editing this. That's not when I wanted it due. I wanted to actually do the following Sunday. So it's easy to go back and switch stuff. And again, if you reach out to our support team, if you needed to connect with your LMS, we'll actually walk you through one-on-one, since every LMS is a little bit different. And the other part I was going to show, we do have test banks. So in this test section, if you click on plus test, these are not the same questions that are in the book. You can go through and choose which questions you want. Right now, mine has no questions. This is true when we have evaluation copies. They'll show no questions, but we actually do have questions. I think we do. I want to verify with you guys that we have these in the test bank. So they're available if you wanted to export those to your LMS for a quiz that was in the LMS or for a paper and pencil quiz. We have questions that you can use.
Yeah, we've got about 550 questions in the test bank.
Perfect. So that's the basics of that. Any other questions coming along, I'd be happy to answer. Otherwise, I'd be happy to pass it to Babak.
Hi, my name is Babak. I'm the IT consultant for zyBooks and the lead author of this book. I'm gonna give you an overview of the book, talk about our pedagogy, show you some sections, and also demo the lab for you. So this is our table of contents. We have 19 chapters. We cover all the topics in the Security Plus exam objective list. There is about 220 animations in this book, over 1,200 questions, 15 labs, and 17 progressions, which are essentially can think of as homework assignments. I'm just going to jump into one of the sections to show you what we have done with the content. Here is a subsection on race condition. Our pedagogy here is based on what we call say, show, ask. So we introduce the topic very succinctly in the say, usually one or two concepts. We provide examples. We follow that with an animation, what we call a show. And it could be as image, but it's typically an animation. And we follow that animation with what we call an ask, which is learning questions. It could be either multiple choice, true or false, fill in the blank, definition matches. So here, for example, on race condition, we have about 6 or 7 lines that describe what the concept is. We talk about time of check to time of use errors or top 2 errors that are caused by race condition. And we provide an example through an animation. So I'm just going to run this animation to show you how 2 processes here access a shared variable called x. And what happens when the 2 processes, when the top 2 error occurs. So for example, here process A reads the value of x is 12. There's a context switch, control is given to process B. Process B adds 7 to x. X is 19 now. At this point, we have a top 2 error because process X at time of use, the value of X is 19, but that time of check was 12. And then we have a error and the value of X at 21 is actually an error because of the top 2. We follow this by a set of questions. The first questions are review questions. The first few questions are review questions, basically reiterating the concepts. We call these learning questions because we provide these explanations for incorrect and correct answers. So I'll let you read those explanations. So our emphasis here is to reduce text and increase interactivity. We want to get the students engaged with the content. So through examples, through animations, through these learning questions, we get the student engaged with the content. So the second question is also a review question. So once we get to the third and fourth questions, we call these explore and expand type questions. So here we're asking the student what happens if a talk to error doesn't occur and one of the processes finishes before the next. And the correct answer is 5. So we provide an image to show why there is no talk to error and what happens to the value of X if the no error occurs. Same thing for the next question, where we have we explain the incorrect answers, and then we provide an image here to explain what happens if process A finishes before process B starts and there's no talk to error. If you have applied the same pedagogy, the same show ask format to all the content of this book. So just to give you an idea, for example, here we have another since we're in the same chapter on application attacks, we have a section on memory vulnerabilities. We cover buffer overflows, integer overflow, memory leaks, stack and heap memory, and pointer dereferencing. We can go over in more detail in one of the sections in cryptography. We cover symmetric and asymmetric cryptography. When it comes to symmetric cryptography, we have block and stream ciphers. This is a subsection on block cipher. So we explain, again, we only can introduce one or two core concepts in each subsection. We provide examples followed by an animation and a question set. So here we're introducing the concept of block cipher. We give examples, how they're used. We talk about an application of that, and we talk about padding. Padding is an important concept in block ciphers. And instead of using text to explain padding and a block cipher, we use animation. So we have a 32-bit block cipher here. As the data comes in, we have a block that is not 32 bits in this case. We have padding bits to create a complete block, and then we encrypt that. This is another learning question. We call these definition matches. There is essentially a way to reinforce the concepts. For example, here we have just a drag and drop. We follow these by multiple choice questions. The first couple of questions are review questions. So we get to question number 4 and 5, where we provide a third. For example, here we ask the student how many blocks do we need to encrypt a 300-bit plain text. And the next question is about padding bits. How many padding bits do we need if you're encrypting 148-bit plain text with 120-bit block cipher? While we are in this chapter, we can also go through another subsection on stream cipher. Again, this is a same pedagogy, say, show, ask. We explain the concept of a stream cipher, key stream generators. We provide examples and why we use an exclusive OR as an operation, because this type of encryption is applied to data streams, including cellular networks and LTE. So if you have an animation here that shows how this stream is generated and how that key stream is exclusive ORs with a data stream to do the encryption. We get to the learning questions. Again, definition matches, followed by question sets. Just going over some of the more exploring questions. We talk about key stream generator and the importance that the key stream generator be the same on both the sender and the receiver. And on the fourth question, we actually talk about a deterministic generator and why is it important to have a deterministic generator on a stream cipher. And of course, all these answers are explained in correct and correct ones. This place it's a good place to stop to answer any questions, comments.
So I think there's a question for Patrick in the chat. Ron is using Canvas as their LMS, and he's asking if he can select assignments and tests and if they'll show up in Canvas directly.
So yeah, so the platform will allow you to have a direct link. And if you were to do that, we would just ask you to work with our support group, because they'll make sure that is running properly for you. We know there's a lot of nuance in every schools, but the short answer is yes, like the assignment due dates and everything and points can come across. So we can make that happen for you.
Awesome. Thanks, Patrick. Does anybody have any questions for Babak about the learning questions he just went through? And feel free to raise your hand if you'd like to just speak instead of type. Go ahead, Ron. Ron's mute button is feeling a little bit. You there, Ron? Ron, you're on mute. I tried to take you off.
Okay,
Oh, there you go.
all right, thank you. For what we're currently seeing on the screen, those concepts and that questioning, correct, incorrect answers is how do you measure the participation level? So students can go through this or say they went through it. Is there a way to measure their level of activity or interaction with this part of the test?
Yes. Let me just get back to that section I covered. So every time, if they run this animation, you see this check mark in the right-hand corner. The instructors have access to that. So they know that this animation was run by the student. And every time they go through these question sets, once they do them correctly, they get the check mark here. So that all of that activity is recorded in the gradebook.
And Ron, I'll speak to the fact that we know from our other titles that it's not uncommon early in a term where students will just click through those to get to the right answer because they're not designed, like they're more formative assessments. But once they get the idea that they're not being penalized for anything, that we notice that their time that they spend on these actually goes up because then they are actually reading and recognizing that they're just quizzing themselves. They're not trying to they could click through and get all the right answers, and then they figure out that it's not really worth it.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I like that. Letting them know it's not graded, but you can still see their participation level would be nice.
Yeah, and there is sort of a sweet spot that we've discovered of just a few points for doing this, that treating it like homework does seem to make a difference in the level of participation.
Yeah, as Michelle alluded earlier, our founders are both professors and have done a lot of peer-reviewed research on the impact that this has had on students. And what we found is that assigning between 5 and 10% of the grade to these participation activities has resulted in the best outcome for students. So that it encourages them to do those participation activities so they get some credit for it, but it's not really a high stakes.
Good point. And for them to realize that following tests or maybe even the labs require knowing these concepts, then maybe that slows them down as well.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And if anyone's interested in it, we have a page, we have a link on our website to all the research that we have done regarding this, if anybody wants to see that.
If there's any other questions, I can continue with what we call challenge activities.
We have one other person with their hand up.
Yeah, that's me, I assume.
Yep, we can hear you.
So I have a question. Some of those questions you're showing included in the test bank, or they are just for practice only?
You mean test bank questions or the questions that I went over?
The questions you are showing now on the demo.
Yes, these are just reinforcing the concepts. These are basically, instead of just having texts in the say parts,
Okay.
just using those questions to drill in the important concepts.
And the
Okay.
test bank questions are a completely separate
Yes.
pool of questions. They're not any of the questions that are in
Those
the book.
test bank questions are similar to the certification exam questions.
Okay. All right.
These are sort of learning questions, very specific to that content.
All right. Okay, thank you.
So another type of activity we have in this book, well, let me just go through this subsection as well. This is a section on historical or classical cryptography, where we talk about substitution and transposition ciphers. There's a challenge. Well, let me just show you. This is another animation. We show a rail fence cipher. Which is a transposition cipher. So what we have for this section, in addition to the participation activities or multiple choice questions, we have a challenge activity. You can think of these as homework assignments. These are primarily different in several ways. One is that they're leveled. Two, that they're randomized. And three, that students have to complete the questions at each level in order to be able to progress to the following level. So for this challenge activity, you're asking the students to basically apply shift cipher, which is a topic that was covered in this chapter. It's an extension. You can think of these as an extension of participation activities. So in this case, they're asked to apply shift ciphers to different character strings or words. If they get all these answers correctly, they can go to the next level. If not, they get a randomized set of questions every time they run this level. So I'm actually clicking on level 1 now. At level 2, once they get all the answers correct, at level 2, we ask them to apply transposition ciphers to character strings. And level 3 is a bit more difficult. We ask them to apply shift ciphers followed, well, here is shift ciphers followed by a columnar cipher or a rail fence cipher. So substitution followed by transposition ciphers. So these could be assigned as homework. And a challenge activity is basically per section. So all the content that we cover in a section is in a CA. To show you another example, we have a section on biometrics. Again, say show ask, our show is an image here. Question sets. I'm just going to scroll through this because I want to show you I want to show you this challenge activity. And this is a 4-level challenge activity. We start from the basics. So it's just this was covered in the first subsection, biometric types. So let me just pick a bunch of these to show you what the feedback is like. So the ones that are boxed in red, they were the incorrect responses. And we explained the responses, correct and incorrect, down here. So if they fail to answer all the questions correctly, they have to rerun this, and they get a different set every time. At second level, we provide different scenarios, and we ask about biometric factors used in each authentication scenario. So the choices here are about biometric factors. Third level, we talk about type 1 and type 2 errors, false rejection rates and false acceptance rates. And we ask the student to compare different FARs and FRRs. And at the last level, we compare different biometric systems. And these comparisons are based on crossover error rates. So we are comparing voice-based with fingerprints or gait-based with retina. And every time we get a different set of biometric systems to compare. Any questions about the challenge activities?
We do have a couple of questions. So we have, Sam has his hand or her hand raised for quite some time. So I'm going to let Sam go first. You can go ahead and unmute Sam and ask your question.
Okay, so can you hear me? I'm Sam.
Yes.
Yes, we can.
Okay, good. Yeah, I just have a question. I do teach Security Plus and other cybersecurity courses, but we have been not using any of these material. We have bought your own CompTIA material from you all. We have been using these, but this seems to be much more informative and useful to the student. So my question is, now do we use the same material what we see for the student and instructor is the same, or we have a different instructor material, or just around that? I have a question. Yeah, which is the same material or different material?
It's the same material.
Same material. That's what I thought.
Yes.
Oh, okay. So that will be nice. Thank you. Thank you.
Yes. The depth of coverage is a lot more than you would typically get from a Security Plus textbook.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks. Yeah, because we are using the textbook.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing comparable to this content.
Definitely. I see this, the difference between the book and the content in the zyBook.
Yeah.
So we will get back to this book soon as possible. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Sure.
Thank you, Sam. And then Ricky in the chat is asking, can we change the participation or the challenge questions?
No. I think that the challenge questions, we may be able to not show some levels, but I don't think we want to do that with this book.
Okay. And the last question in the chat is, do you offer something similar to day one?
Can you be a bit more specific?
Yeah, I'm not familiar with that.
Do you mean what we would cover in the first lecture of the course, or?
They're going to send a link. It seems like it's another kind of a platform or something that's available, maybe. I'm not familiar with day one. I don't know if Brian or anyone else.
If it's a reference to onboarding, then we do have an introductory section that we're going to be dropping into the chapter that will explain all of the zyBook pedagogy for students. And within the labs, we have a lab 0 that walks students through all the interfaces, all the interface and buttons and everything for the lab.
Okay, thanks, Brian. All right, I'll wait for the link in the chat, Babak, but I think you can continue.
Okay. Next, I'd like to go over our lab platform. Our labs are developed in-house, the platform as well as the content. This is the interface to our labs. On the left-hand side is our what we call the instruction pane. This is where we introduce the lab concepts, the learning objectives, the devices that are used in the labs, and the tasks the students are expected to perform. On the right-hand side, we have virtual machines. Our labs are auto-graded, which is the first in the industry. There's no other auto-graded VM-based labs out there. We save the state of these labs for 3 days, which is also a first. I think most of these labs are saved for 60 minutes. We also have Kali, Linux, and Windows VMs in these labs. To show you auto grading here, there's a lab on account management. This corresponds to the chapter on identity and access management, which we cover aspects of accounting, password policies, password lockout policies, password duration policies, file access, permissioning. And here's a lab where we show the student how these concepts are implemented in a real-world operating system, in this case, Server 2022, and particularly how Active Directory is used to manage network resources. So to show you auto grading, we provide step-by-step instruction for these labs. For example, here, the first step of the lab is to start Server Manager. So as you can see, this activity was graded. So the grading in these labs serve two purposes. One is to give the student the direction to give real-time feedback that they are doing the right step in the lab. And two, obviously, is to grade student performance in the lab. So the second step in this lab is to run the Active Directory users and services. As you can see, that point was granted here. And just to show another step, we're providing an organizational unit here. Oh, sorry, I misspelled it. And how we follow that by adding users to the OU. I won't be going through these steps. And then we apply some security policies. We create some password policies. We disable access to removable storage devices, and all these steps are graded as the student goes through the lab. We also, as I mentioned, we have labs that use Linux and Windows VMs. For example, in chapter 4 on network attacks, we have a fairly comprehensive lab on denial of service attacks. We cover protocol-based attacks, network-based attacks, and application layer-based attacks. For each one of those, for each type of attack, we have we've explained what, for example, here we're doing is a TCP sync flood attack from Kali onto the Windows machine. We have a Windows server here running Wireshark. And we have the following section, we cover ICMP and UDP flood attacks, the following two sections. And the last section is an application layer attack using SlowLoris, which exhausts connection pools of the web server, as an example of an application layer denial of service attack. We also use the platform to show concepts. For example, in cryptography, we have a lab on asymmetric cryptography where we use the OpenSSL library to create RSA keys and then use those keys to exchange secure emails between two users, Alice and Bob. Again, I won't be going through these steps. It takes about 20 to 25 minutes to complete one of these labs. Are there any questions on the platform or the content?
No questions in the chat right now. Feel free to raise your hand if you would like to speak.
And the grades for the labs show up alongside the grades for the participation activities and the challenge activities in the grade book.
Any other questions or comments from anyone? Okay. Well, thank you, Babak, for showing us the content, and Patrick for showing us the platform.
We do have a question now.
Yeah, I just saw that.
Hi.
You can go ahead and unmute.
Michelle, this question might be better answered by Patrick because I saw him going through something I am having a little trouble with. The question, Patrick, if you go back to the setup screen for me and click the assignments.
Okay, I'll share my screen.
Yeah, this does not apply necessarily to this particular course because I am using zyBooks. Okay, let me ask you this. Maybe I goofed up something this past Saturday. I set up the assignment and I think a week before. And when I was trying to add additional assignments, I inadvertently kind of deleted one of the lab that was in progress. One of the assignment that was in progress. I sent an email to the support, and they told me that there's no way they can recover that. My question is it possible for something to be done where we can, if someone deletes those assignments by mistake, especially if it is ongoing, because some of the students had already started or had already completed the assignment.
Right. So you don't have anybody doing it twice.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is it possible to recover that? Do you know of any way? Maybe you've been using it longer. I've been using it now for 3 years on my programming courses, but this is the first time I have done that.
It's a really good question. I am actually meeting with that group tomorrow. I don't know the answer to that, but I'll ask them because I'm sure you're not the first.
Yeah.
If nothing else, it would be interesting to be able to like lock it down and make it so you can't delete it if it's active. But yeah, I'll ask and we'll make a note to let you know what I find out.
Okay, very good. Thank you so much.
Any other questions or comments? Okay. Well, thank you all so much for joining us today and allowing us to show you this new zyBook. Just one more reminder that after we close out today, you should receive a link pop up for the survey. In that survey, you can request eval access, you can request a more in-depth demo, and you can also request to be a part of future research and development in the IT area if you would like.
I did want to add real quickly, we do have, we had some folks yesterday ask if we had other books in IT coming. We do have a Network Plus book that will be coming out for class testing this fall. So you can express that in the survey if you're interested in finding out more information about that. We'll do a rollout of that book coming in the fall, but I did want to give you a heads up on that.
Awesome. Thanks, Brian. And yes, today's session was recorded and we'll be sending that out in the next day or two. And if you missed the pop-up for the survey, the link to the survey will also be in that follow-up email. So again, thank you so much for your time today and have a great day, everybody.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
everyone.
Yep.